go. Nice.
Keep going. Keep going.
Would you like a stool? Yeah.
Now you switch them over fast, and I look like Marco Rubio. Thanks, Chris. Stephen Crane, Town Manager. I'm here to present the Article 10 FY21 budget. This is the motion that was provided by the Finance Department. Obviously, I'm not going to read that, but it's there for your review. I want to go, if I may, Mr. Chairman, off script for a second. If you were here for the preview meeting or the last select board hearing here, I think we heard a lot of feedback, literally, that the acoustics in here weren't very good and the sound wasn't very good. I'm hoping people are noticing tonight that the acoustics are better and the sound is a lot better. And the team at Minuteman Media Network spent a lot of time working on the sound system, and so we haven't heard, and I'm sure it'll happen now that I'm saying this out loud, but we haven't heard a squeak of feedback or anywhere near the level of echoing. So I want to commend those folks for the work they did to make it so we can hear the presentations. Thank you, Dan. Clicker here. The fiscal year 21 proposed budget is in conformance with the guidelines. That guideline, of course, is a 2.5% increase in the general fund appropriation. A few highlights. We have a new budget book. And the basic thing with the budget book is the prior budget book, which was excellent, GFOA award winning, and has tons of information, was based on a PowerPoint model of slides and graphics. The new budget book, which is based on a GFOA award winning model somewhere in Western Mass, also has a lot of information, but it's based on a word format, so it reads more like a narrative. So I'm hoping folks like the change. And I want to commend the Finance Department for really taking that challenge on. It was a really intense amount of work. So other highlights, we have consolidated budget line items. We've taken basically 39 and converted them into 16. At the end of the presentation, I'm going to run through that extremely quickly. We have a command structure change in the fire department I'll go through. Increased legal services budget, as we noted, and then there's 2 new positions, dispatcher for the police department overnight, and a land manager for DPLM to help the town be a good steward of the vast swaths of conservation land that the town owns. Overall, though, I think due to some attrition and some other moving around of some parts, there's a net decrease in FTEs funded by the general fund. And at the preview meeting, there was a comment I got asked about increase the growth in full-time employees. FTEs, full-time equivalents, FTEs. And so at the next SMT meeting, next department meeting, we went and asked about, I asked the question, what has driven this growth and where does it come from? And so what we discovered, and this is a general fund budget presentation, but for the purposes of the FTE analysis, I do commingle general fund and enterprise fund because I think the concern about is the number of employees, not how they're paid for. So since FY15, we did a 5-year look back. There has been 52 additional FTEs. CMLP, fire, and IT are combined for about 15 of that total, so that's more than 20% in just those 3 departments. And so the totals in FY21 are 248 for the general fund, and 117.5 for the enterprise and revolving funds. So there's been a growth of about 14%. The additions, so why we add these positions? Some of them are easy. Service expansion, going 24/7 in the West Concord Fire Station, the broadband service that was mentioned earlier. It was a new enterprise since 2015. We also have increased demands for service. The library has a growing rate of circulation and visitation, and we also, because we have an aging population, there's a steady growth in EMS calls. We also have expanded roles. There have been a lot of new boards and committees that have been created that have required town administrative or professional support. And the town has also assumed operation of the our public access television station, and we have a facilities division that manages our buildings. That is a relatively new department as well. And then finally, there are emerging needs that have been identified. For example, the municipal archivist is a new position that is helping the town really take care of its records, working with the town clerk. We also have a tourism coordinator to help as a part of as an economic vitality exercise, and we also have a sustainability coordinator. So the comment was made before about the population of the town versus the growth in employees. There really isn't a link there. It's the types of services that the community expects and wants, and also areas of service that we as the administrators know are going to be things that need to be addressed. So that really kind of explains the growth, and I hope that helps. So amongst the recommendations in general government, we have, again, each department had its own building expense line item. We've taken those out of the individual department budgets and placed them in the facilities division budget. We also took a little bit off the top because we think we're going to find some efficiencies that way with the budget. We also have, I don't need to mention legal services again. We are also elevating the tourism coordinator position that I believe was created last year in accordance with Envision Concord, making that more an economic vitality and tourism coordinator, so increasing the responsibilities of that position, and then also adding a part-timer at the visitor center to help offset the loss in time that coordinator will spend on economic vitality as opposed to tourism. So there's been also switch. The retirement system employees, one of whom was just here a few moments ago, are now being paid by the retirement system as opposed to the town, and so there's a drop in those wages, but also a drop in the credit and transfer from the pension system. And then I added the land manager. The good thing about the land manager is it's a good value for a new full-time position that will play an important role, because funds are currently being allocated to have the tree preservation bylaw enforced by building inspectors. They're voluntarily giving up those duties, and those will go to the land manager, so there's a bit of an offset there, which is good news. Public safety, we talk about the command structure. Basically, there's a shift on Walden Street, and there's a shift on West Concord, and there's a captain that oversees both, and no other officers. So the plan is to elevate an existing firefighter on shift to a lieutenant. So the lieutenants will manage the calls, and the captain will be the shift boss for both shifts. So not an expansion of FTEs, but obviously an existing firefighter will be promoted and will be more highly compensated. There's also the second dispatcher that is really important for overnight calls. I know that in the world of dispatching, there are increased mandates from the state and federal government to have more than just one person on the desk at any one time. So we also have this year, the general fund budget did have to absorb a loss of $124,000 from the Emergency Services Stabilization Fund, which I believe is from the Muse project. That offset the cost. Four new firefighters were hired a couple years ago to do the 24/7 coverage at West Concord. This is part of a planned decrease in that offset. So the general fund by the end of the schedule will have 100% of those wages. I do have the attrition savings in here. I'll comment on that in a little more detail later. The Public Works is going to be replacing a fuel depot. On the flip side, there is going to be a decreased cost in the street lighting expenses because of upgrades of the fixtures. And then there is some attrition savings at the library as well, and we are making a market adjustment to our social workers who were really, from a market standpoint, really well underpaid. And we talked earlier about how HR does constant analysis and tests the market for those wages, and really social workers who play such a vital role just weren't even close. So we're hopeful the timing will support that. The salary grid is the salary reserve fund. We're budgeting $500,000 for that. That pays for collective bargaining agreements and other wage adjustments that get made during the year. So the attrition savings is over $350,000. Most of that, as you saw on the prior slide, was related to public safety. We've had a lot of retirements in both the police and fire departments. When a firefighter or police officer who's senior retires from top step, you bring in a rookie who's obviously paid much less than the person who's walking out the door. Those savings, plus you also have a new town manager, a special collections curator, a lot of positions that have been filled at less than the prior occupant of that position. As people grow and advance through the salary scale, those attrition savings start to wash out, but they are in effect here for this year. We did increase the fire department training budget and police department training budgets because we do now have a younger workforce, so there was a little bit of an offset to the attrition there. So this is the summary of the transfer and the credits, which are monies that are revolving in enterprise funds, pay to the general fund to offset costs for service. That's time, HR's time, finance department's time, town manager's office time, spent on helping oversee those operations. And you can see that the enterprise funds are more than half of it. Special revenue funds are about a third, and then about a quarter, and then other smaller funds are about a quarter. I'm sure Kerry could speak to those in greater detail if needed. Here's a summary of the budget. The bottom line is overall, all in, including the schools, it's about a 3.04% increase from FY20. As you can see there, the general fund portion is about a 2.84%. There's a few expenditures in there that are not subject to the guideline, which is why that doesn't say 2.5. You can see the transfers listed there. That'll bring us to, out of all that money, where does $1 get allocated? As you can see from the gray and the orange, a little more than half is allocated to jointly the regional school district and Concord Public Schools. And then town government, the blue slice, is about 25% of the budget, followed by things like debt service and borrowing and benefits. So these next 4 slides I'm not going to spend a lot of time on. I mentioned the consolidation of line items. This gives the town government more flexibility in managing funds in the fiscal year, and it also really more closely reflects how these departments and these funds are actually managed in real time in the organization. These 4 slides are really just a map to how we turned 36 or 39 into 16, and so if you find the presentation online, you can go and see we didn't cut out a bunch of stuff, we just kind of reassigned it. So if just looking at the left column is FY20, the left column is the 39, the second one in is the 16. So as I go through, you'll see there's only small in terms of removals, but if people want to know going into the town meeting where line items went, this can map it out for you. And that's it for me. Any questions?
Any questions from the committee?
Oh,
None.
talked into
Good
submission.
job, yeah.